Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And I got another story for you. This one's coming straight out of my backyard in St. Louis, Missouri, with a couple of professionals. We got a school principal who is supposed to be a leader and fostering children into the right direction and navigating themselves through life and going from childhood to adolescence to teenage years and into adulthood, and putting something in their brain and being a mentor and a positive example for kids. This principal turned out to be a murderer. And this is a strange story again. This is a true crime. So here we go. Former St. Louis school principal pleads guilty to federal charges in murder for hire plot. A former St. Louis middle school principal appeared in federal court on Wednesday, it's just yesterday, and admitted to paying a friend to kill his pregnant girlfriend. I follow this story because this is a straight soap opera. Jocelyn Peters, who was a third grade school teacher, was found shot to death inside her Central West End apartment on March 24th, 2016. Peters was 30 at the time and was 7 months pregnant at the time of her murder. She taught third grade at Horace Mann Elementary School in the Tower Grove neighborhood in South City, St. Louis. Months later, Philip Cutler of Oklahoma was arrested in connection with the killing. St. Louis homicide detectives learned Cutler had been a longtime friend of Principal Cornelius M. Green, who was Peters' boyfriend at the time. So Principal Green is Jocelyn Peters' boyfriend. So follow the story. And he's a principal, but he gets his friend Cutler to come and commit this crime, who lived in Oklahoma. Federal and local prosecutors alleged that Green, who was already legally married, Principal Green was married, was cheating on his spouse with Miss Peters and got her pregnant in 2015. Principal Cornelius Green was the former principal at Carr Lane Visual and Performing Arts Middle School near downtown St. Louis. Green had been working for the district since 2002, serving as a teacher, assistant principal, and then eventually the principal, according to the St. Louis Public Schools. He worked his way up the chain of command in the educational system here in St. Louis. Sometime in early 2016, prosecutors say Green hatched a plan to murder Jocelyn Peters and their unborn child. He reached out to his friend Cutler and offered to pay him to commit the deed. On or about March 7, 2016, Principal Green sent a UPS package to Cutler containing $2,500 as a retainer for the crime. Jocelyn Peters was murdered on March 24, 2016 in her Central West End apartment. And for those who don't know, in the city of St. Louis, the Central West End is a very vibrant and upscale place to live. They're multi-million dollars here. You're right next to Forest Park, the Chase Hotel, and there are a lot of wealthy individuals that live in this area. On March 21st, Cutler traveled from Oklahoma to St. Louis to stay at Principal Green's residence. The following day, Principal Green traveled from St. Louis to Chicago so he wouldn't be in town when the third grade teacher, Miss Peters, was killed. Principal Green left Cutler with keys to his car and to Mrs. Peters' apartment. Prosecutors allege Cutler entered Mrs. Peters' apartment, found her in bed, and shot her in the head with a .380 caliber gun using a potato as a silencer. This sounds like straight out of a movie. Cutler called Green to tell him that he had killed Miss Peters. Shortly thereafter, Principal Green booked a return train ticket back to St. Louis. Green went to the apartment, found his girlfriend murdered, and called police to report the death. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Missouri charged both Green and Cutler with the conspiracy to commit murder for hire. Meanwhile, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office charged Principal Green with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of armed criminal action and burglary, and said they would seek the death penalty in his case. Missouri is just like Texas and Alabama. You can be put to death here for first-degree murder. City prosecutors at the time said they would also seek the death penalty for Cutler. That's the guy from Oklahoma who came to St. Louis to commit the crime, for $2,500, whom they charged with two counts of first-degree murder and armed criminal action also. Principal Green, as of yesterday, pleaded guilty in federal court with the hope of avoiding the death penalty trial in St. Louis Circuit Court. According to the plea agreement, the Circuit Attorney's Office will dismiss its charges against Green, Principal Green, if he's sentenced to life imprisonment on each count in the federal case. The plea agreement is not, however, binding for the Circuit Attorney's Office or the federal judge presiding over the case. Principal Green will be sentenced on June 5th of this year. Meanwhile, Cutler, the guy that committed the murder, is scheduled to appear in federal court on March 11th for the beginning of his trial. He is also awaiting trial in St. Louis City. So they're being charged in federal court and in St. Louis City. There is no way around this. For this principal, who was married, committing adultery, those things happen. But for him to decide as a leader of a middle school, for young people, for black kids, this is a black guy, African American, to decide that the way to get out of his relationship with his mistress is to kill her and then have his friend do it for $2,500. The value for life is so minimal in today's time that it's not even funny. And to have a principal, an attorney, a doctor, a judge, people who have dedicated themselves to education and hopefully trying to do the right thing and being mentors for young kids, for him to lower his standard all the way to the dirt and the mud and commit this crime and kill this beautiful young lady who was 30 years old and was a third grade teacher is heinous. He killed Miss Joycelyn Peters. She was at the beginning of her life, pregnant, and had no idea that she was in a relationship with a demon. And this is where issues like this and the debate goes on whether the death penalty should be enacted or abolished, or whether he should spend the rest of his life rotting in jail. That's up for debate. Jail is not a fun place. These two individuals committing this crime against a woman and her unborn child, they are going to have a target on them, and jail will be hell for both of them, and they deserve it. And like I said, this case took place in 2016. And, sometimes the court systems have to take their time to make sure they get it right. And so Principal Green just pleaded guilty in federal court, and he still can go, so he wouldn't get the death penalty, but he still has to go before the St. Louis Circuit City Court, and he can still get the death penalty. And his friend, Cutler, is going to trial and has not pleaded guilty yet. With all the evidence that's been displayed, he's probably going to plead guilty to life in prison, and that's where they both deserve. It's unfortunate for the young lady, Miss Peters, and her family, that she had to lose her life to these two boneheads. And these guys destroyed their families' lives and Mrs. Peters' family's lives and Mrs. Peters, which is a sad commentary when we're trying to, as teachers and administrators, lawyers, doctors, to be leaders in our communities and lead these kids and navigate them in the right direction. And all that Mr. Green and Mr. Cutler wanted to do was destroy this young lady and her future, and their answer was to kill her. Unfortunate circumstance. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.